And so the vampires come out to drink the blood of the suffering that they've inflicted on the people, and specifically for the purposes of establishing a deeper division and thereby causing a distraction so they can get on quietly behind the scenes with their New World Order agendas of global corporate takeover of every nation on the planet, every single human being on the planet, enslaved to repaying the unrepayable and criminal, fictitious corporate debt. That's what's going on. And Theresa May and the people she supports and who support her, the union, you see, because only they are allowed to have a union. Okay. They will not be satisfied until Britain is like Palestine and Israel. That's when that is what they want. They know that there's going to be social unrest, but they'd rather it not be against the real enemy, basically our criminal, treasonous, traitorous government, Theresa May and all the ruling powers in Britain. They don't want any attention focused on them. They want the attention focused on Muslims, don't they? And, you know, the very fact that they still refer to these terrorists, which, like I say, whether they're real, whatever they are, they're all orchestrated and organised at their behest. And, you know, that is exactly what they are for, to increase divide, to unleash a torrent of hate speeches against Muslims on the internet, to recruit even more haters. Because they know that traumatised people are very vulnerable and very emotional, and they're very pliable. And everybody in this country at the moment is emotionally traumatised. Because life is very difficult. People are seriously struggling. Now, I've shared this picture. This is just one of such stories. Of hundreds I could show you. Frances McCormack suffered the loss of her son Jack to suicide. You know, first of all, her son. She's brought a son into this world, a child into this world, her son, has committed suicide. That's how wonderful life is in Britain. She was then hounded because she now had a spare room to be taxed. The day her eviction notice came, the working mother was found hanged. She leaves 2 other sons, only in Tory Britain. There's just so many stories like this. I think it's been estimated now that 93,000 people have lost their lives directly due to benefit cuts. Have died within 6 weeks of having their claims stopped. 93,000 people. And Theresa May wants to talk to us about terrorism from sporadic, crazed people calling themselves Muslims. You know, the whole nation needs to be really concerned. You know, now the internet's got to be regulated. Was it the internet that caused that terror attack? No. The terror attack is directly related, no matter whichever way you want to go about looking at it, whichever way you want to look at it, the terrorist attacks are the direct result of this government's policies, of Parliament's policies, Parliament's involvement with a global criminal cabal, the Zionists, and their cohorts. Like I say, it's socialism for them, corporate capitalism for us. The Zionists, you know, the Saudi Daesh, because yes, take heed, Saudi, unless you get with 21st true Islam, living in the 21st century by and honouring human rights, you are Daesh. Okay, so until you stop being Daesh, expect everything that's coming to the Daesh. And the same goes for you, Theresa May, and your government, and the royal family. You are all Daesh, which is basically what? The inhumane sadists, unbelievers, who always stand under the banner of God, every single one of you. And we know for a fact, you know, irrefutable, solid evidence, MI5, MI6, CIA, Mossad are very deeply involved in creating ISIS, funding it, training them, arming them, you know, sending out MI5, MI6 mouthpieces into Britain, into British mosques, preaching extremism, anti-Islamic rhetoric, Daesh rhetoric, to see what unhinged, unbalanced, depressed, dismayed people they can gather. Yeah, come and join us, you know, you can go to Pakistan, get trained, we'll pay you £500 a week, you know, you can go into countries and rape women and children and kill and chop people's heads off, all under the banner of Islam. And anybody with half a brain knows that that is not Islam. And the Muslims themselves are saying it's not Islam. The Muslims are calling those ISIS Daesh. So why are you, Theresa May, calling them Muslims? Well, we know why. It's because you want to make sure that the overall word Muslim is what is attracting the hatred that you are now trying to instill in the British people, that your puppet masters want Britain to be divided, to be another Palestine, Israel. And so you know, insist on using the word Muslim instead of Daesh, which is what they are. Because Muslims don't do the things that these people who claim to be Islamic are doing. But there again, your government, your parliament should know, and your royal family, since it was you lot who established the Daesh as the Saudi leadership a century ago, wasn't it? And you're still in the thick with them now, aren't you? Selling them weapons to bomb innocent people in Yemen. And bringing Britain, you know, committing war crimes in our name. And you want to talk to us about terrorism? Well, 93,000 people are dead directly through benefit corps. And it's estimated about 50,000 people have been driven to early death or suicide from all the other impacts of austerity, through redundancy and overwork and underpaid. But, you know, these people are just dying individually in their homes, aren't they? They're not being stabbed in the streets. We're supposed to ignore it, aren't we? Like we're supposed to ignore this as well, aren't we? You know, this is what MPs have said. This is a terrorist threat. We're talking about organised crimes committed by against children by people in positions of power and authority over British children and families. Directly, they've got the powers to remove children from British families on the grounds of a future emotional risk. There's a very real risk that some paedophile top social worker could perchance see a child somewhere that they'd like to get their hands on, and next minute social services are at that person's door. Or is she a single mum? Prodding and poking. Oh, mum was abused as a child. I'm sorry, love, we're going to have to take her off you. You're a future emotional risk because you were abused as a child. Was a mum in care? Oh, we're going to have to take your children off you because you're a future emotional risk. It's known that people who've been in care are damaged, and usually damage the children. We're talking about serious organised crimes. Check out the Hampstead case. May was directly contacted by the mother of the children on behalf of her own children and all the other children who we lawfully suspect are at lawfully suspected risk, after every single authority had failed to deliver even a modicum of justice. And she just ignored it. You know, you're talking about, according to the children, hundreds of trafficked babies being killed. A crime report that's confirmed by the UN, who 2 months previously had told Britain in no uncertain terms that thousands of babies are being trafficked into Britain and hundreds of them are being murdered every year. She did nothing about it. And so, why isn't this a terrorist threat? You know, I would say British people need to wake up to the real terrorist threat here, which is the Zionists. You know, forget this word Israel, just it's Zionism. And what is Zionism? It is basically the Daesh of Judaism, isn't it? The unbelievers who do operate under the banner of Judaism, but really they are anti-Jew, exactly the same as ISIS operates under the banner of Islam, but they're really anti-Islamic. And the sad thing is that a lot of the people that are involved, that, you know, stand with under those banners, they themselves don't even know that they are actually anti what they claim to be representing, because that's how brainwashed people are in this world today, because that consciousness has been established for hundreds of years. People are born into it, people get suckered into it, especially when it's got a lot of money and a lot of power. You know, she's not the only MP in Britain that's being funded by the Israel lobby, the Zionist lobby. You know, they fund political parties in Britain. And so we need to ask ourselves, why? Why is this foreign power that supports Zionism, that is fundamentally against human rights, their doctrine? Their doctrine is basically anybody who's not Jewish is not a full human being. That is the foundation of their doctrine. They are God's people. They are the superior people. They are meant to rule the whole planet. And they are. They control all the money. And they control all these global corporations. To the extent that they will have the whole planet subjected to the point where, you know, somebody coughs in Britain and some foreign shareholder gets 50p into their account. That is what is going on. Britain's going to be just another corporate farm. And the absolute fact of it is that these Zionists have more say and more control over government policy than British people. Okay. And meanwhile, charities are banned from lobbying. They're saying, well, we're not banning them from lobbying, we're just banning them from using public funds. But it costs money to lobby, to do the legwork, to do the research, the reports, to hand them in, to go and meet with the MPs. It all costs money. And how is a charity going to get all that together without using the money that has been donated to them specifically for the purpose of representing the most vulnerable people in Britain? So British charities have been banned from lobbying. How can that be? How can that be? How can she talk about a terrorist threat when we've got this foreign power that supports a Daesh doctrine, Zionists, who have got our MPs, our parliament, in the palm of their hand? You know, they're even infiltrating the British Students' Union. Israelis influence student activist and parliamentary groups in the UK, offering financial and strategic assistance in order to gather support among young organisers and shape British politics, Al Jazeera's investigative unit reveals. Because all of this costs money. Founding youth groups. And, you know, this investigative report did cause quite a stir, because there was a recording on it where they were going, you know, they were plotting, the Zionists from the Jewish embassy, the Israeli embassy, they were plotting to take down senior British Foreign Office official Alan Duncan, you know, discussing a secretly recorded film showing them discussing taking down Duncan with a little scandal and putting Blunt on the hit list, because, you know, these two people have spoken out. Alan Duncan had claimed that West Bank settlements were a wicked cocktail of illegality and occupation, and suggested that those who supported them should be barred from public office. Well said, Alan Duncan. You know, hats off to you. Thank you. And this is exactly what I'm saying. Because when we look at what Israel's doing to Palestine, and now Saudi Arabia is doing to Yemen, and Britain's already done to Iraq, you know, what is going on in this world? How is it that these Zionists are getting involved in British politics, getting involved even in, you know, the very start of political movements in Students' Union, actually founding movements, using their money to create a student movement, to influence even the election of the president of the Students' Union. And it gets worse, you know. Pro-Israel lobby threatens British government over illegal settlement vote at the UN because Britain, you know, voted against their illegal settlements. Oh, you know, next minute, they're getting emails. Mrs May and Mr Johnson must be persuaded to apologise to the Jewish people for their failure to veto 2334. If they do not do so, they must be made to understand that Jewish support for the Conservative Party at the next general election is at risk. The British Board of Deputies of British Jews, the UK Zionist Federation and Jewish Leadership Council clearly threaten to destroy the Tory vote at the next election in areas where Jewish voting influence has a major impact, such as Glasgow, Manchester and parts of North West London. You know, oh, next minute there were meetings with the Under Secretary of State at the Foreign Office, you know, and demands for face-to-face meetings with May and Johnson. That is the kind of power that these people have. But, you know, people like this lady, what power has she had? None whatsoever. You know, the people of Britain, we haven't even got a voice in our own parliament. So you are a traitor, Theresa May. And so is the royal family. Because the Queen swore an oath of office and signed a written contract to uphold the laws of the land, of her people. And our law since World War II, that men like my granddad sacrificed their lives for, and our ancestors went through hell and misery for centuries of oppression to get our human rights. They are the foundation of British law, of the law of the people, okay? You have promised and pledged to scrap them. Obviously not, that isn't a promise and pledge to me, is it? It's a promise and pledge to you Zionist puppet masters. And for the Queen even to allow it to even be discussed, she's broken her oath of office. Because that is a terrorist threat against the British people. Is having the threat of, is being threatened with having our human rights removed by people who don't uphold human rights, who actually support the anti-human agendas and commit war crimes, and you want to remove our human rights. Over my dead body you will remove those rights. And, you know, if we go on to, sorry about this,
I understand.
to Gordon Bowden.
However,
he exposes fully, he's got absolute solid evidence that really should have been put people in front of a judge. But no, we can just ignore him. The real terrorists of this world, the financial criminals, David Cameron, directly implicated, involved in selling fake AAA rated shares, you know, supposed to be solid sound investments. With those fake AAA rated shares, they drained British pensions, trust funds, NHS funds, you name it. Independent British businesses, all robbed. Follow the money. All roads lead to Finchley Road. And Belinda Mackenzie in the Hampstead case, the one I just mentioned, that Theresa May was directly appealed to for help. Some of the lawful suspects in that case, okay, their companies have been traced to the exact same Finchley Road address that David Cameron's fake companies are registered. He's got all the evidence. But you know, nobody wants to listen to Gordon Bowden. John Patterson, another British citizen, he's took the crime report to police himself as well. They don't want to do anything. You know, if it wasn't for John Patterson, I wouldn't have even heard of Gordon Bowden. Because, you know, he's not going to get no publicity. It is down to, you know, genuine righteous British people just speaking out on their Facebook, whatever little bit of power they have to speak. But you see, we aren't the news. Because at the end of the day, we're not swathed in black, wielding a machete, shouting, Allah Akbar. The BBC's not interested in us. They're not interested in justice for children. Instead, what they are interested in is giving a 30-minute empathic interview to a lawfully suspected child abuser and murderer. And not even bother to ask the question why it is, when fully satisfied there's fully satisfied arrest criteria. The man wasn't lawfully arrested and had his mobile phone and his computer confiscated. But of course we don't expect that level of police action for our children, do we? And she wants to talk to us about a terrorist threat. So, you know, looking at this, okay, and the evidence that I've just shown, just on a few little things here, the evidence that I've just shown, and there's all this fuss in America about President Trump and Russia, and maybe Russia has had a hand in influencing their democratic vote. Well, you know, this is just blatant. This is blatant. Blatantly, the Zionists do manipulate and use their money to influence what's going on in Britain, to influence our elections, you know, and that is the absolute threat. This isn't a conspiracy theory. These are facts. Political manipulation inside the British government. And that is what has been going on for decades. And as for British MPs, that's why I say I can't vote for any of you, because until you start speaking out, like for example, you know, asking questions about 9/11, i.e. observing the laws of physics that totally discredit the official conspiracy theory. Until you're prepared to, all of you, stand up and threaten to walk out until these are implemented, in order to protect your constituents' children from a terrorist threat, because that is what organised child abusers are. The UN has now listed organised child abuse as a crime against humanity. And how can you people, when you know from your own report the extent of the terrorist threat to every child in Britain or entering into Britain, and now that has been listed by the UN as a crime against humanity, and you're supposed to be representing your constituents, and you know that there's no child protection directives in place, so basically all your constituents' children are at risk of crimes against humanity, and not one of you are standing up and demanding that these are implemented, even for your own conscience, being as you are representing your constituents and you're supposed to be there upholding the law, defending, protecting our nation. So all I've got to say to you, Theresa May, and your cronies, okay, is that Britain is not going to become Palestine, Israel. We know what your game is, we know what you're up to, we know this is all part of your plot, your distraction. But I have faith that the intelligent people will stand up, the good people of Britain, we will stand up, we will unite. Okay, and you're not going to have a war against Islam, okay? It's going to be a battle between people who support Jar law and love universal intelligence, human rights, against those who don't, okay? And standing up for our rights is not to stand against anything. But it's people like you and the people you serve who have been standing against us and our rights. And if there's going to be a battle, we will fight for them. Because nothing less than the future of our planet and our children are at stake.